for coming today for our Love Me a Job event. We're had a little technical difficulties, but we're gonna go ahead and get started. I have our three speakers here today to support us with your job seeking journey, and we did this event last year as well with a Valentine's theme, where everyone can love you a job, right? And so we put together a good panel today to support with our job search. I'm going to read our bios for Keri-Lynne, Matt, and Melanie, who've going to be part of our panel today. So Keri-Lynne, she's founder of The Salary Bump, empowering professionals to own their worth, navigate career transitions, and secure the pay they deserve. She's a former chief people officer with extensive HR experience. Keri-Lynne has helped countless individuals articulate their value, negotiate effectively, and achieve transformative career growth. Her approach blends strategy, authenticity, and actionable tools that create win-win outcomes in both salary negotiations and career advancement. Through her programs, Keri-Lynne inspires professionals to take the driver's seat in their careers, design paths they love, and unlock their full potential. You can check her out at thesalarybump.com. Matt Warzel is on a mission to take guesswork out of career transitions, a former recruiter for Fortune 500 companies, including General Motors, Ford, PNC, and more. Matt has reviewed thousands of resumes. He's seen cookie cutter templates fail to stand out and understands what recruiters and hiring managers truly want. After experiencing his own layoff, Matt transitioned into career consulting, leveraging his insider knowledge to help job seekers succeed. And you can check Matt out at mjwcareers.com. And Melanie Lippman is an image strategist, personal branding expert, international speaker, and certified neuro coach with over 18 years of experience, empowering leaders to align their professional image with their career goals. She has partnered with renowned organizations like Toyota, Charles Schwab, and Ropes and Gray, helping executives and professionals elevate their presence, strengthen leadership strategies, and drive measurable results. Melanie's unique approach combines psychology, branding, and leadership to address critical challenges professionals face today. You can check her out at melanielippman.com. I'll provide all the links and bios in the chat at the end of the conversation. So we're going to start off today with Melanie, who's going to be talking about managing your image and personal brand as executive. And take it away, Melanie.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. So today we are going to chat about what you wear is actually the missing piece between you and your next career move. So according to the Journal of Applied Psychology, well-dressed candidates are perceived as more confident. And also according to Forbes, first impressions happen in just 7 seconds. And this is actually an old statistic. I've been saying this statistic for the past 12 years while I've been being an image coach. And I can guarantee you in our Amazon scrolling world, it's 3 seconds. That when you get into someone's world within literally milliseconds, they are perceiving if you are the right candidate or not for the job before you even open your mouth. A message is being sent and they're picking up what you're putting down. And we really want to make sure that you are showing up in a way that is not only making you look professional, but also helping you stand out from the crowd. So we talk about executive presence a lot when it comes to what you should be wearing, how you should be showing up. And so what exactly is executive presence? It has to do with appearance, communication, and gravitas. And what you wear is the fastest way to control how you're perceived. We want to make sure that you are mastering your executive presence in every single situation. And most important thing is when you are thinking about executive presence and how you are showing up, that you are balancing your own personal style with the industry expectations. And the most important thing really is to be you. Like it's interesting because I work with a lot of people that are in the C-suite and there's this concept of what looking successful is. And normally it's someone who has a nice watch, they have some nice shoes, and they have a really dark colored blazer. And the one thing that I know of working with professionals and leaders is the reason why they're really good at their jobs and the reason why they get their job is because they stand out and is because they're willing to do something different than everyone else is. So I'm not saying go to your interview wearing a rainbow clown suit or something like that. But if you are going to dress in a way that makes you stand out from the crowd, you're going to be memorable. Someone is going to do, there's so much association with color, with texture, with a message that you're sending, and also our memories. So my invitation for you is to sit in the driver's seat when it comes to this, as opposed to it being the thing that you are thinking about at the very last second. Because you're spending so much time building a resume, applying for jobs, having all the right conversations. But within seconds, you could be quickly taking yourself out of the game because of what you're putting on, and you're not investing the time to think about how you're showing up and leaving it for like 10 minutes before. So my invitation for you is to make sure that you're sending the message that you want to be sent. The other thing that's also really important in how you're showing up is to be one level up. So it's the one level up rule. So we've all heard of dress for the job that you want, not the job that you have, but there is so much power in that. Not only in the messages that you are sending when it comes to your clothes, but also you yourself, like you knowing that you are showing up as the most competent and confident person. Like you're going to play full out when you're in those situations, when you're showing up for an interview. If you are showing up just a little bit more formal, it's going to make you stand out, and it's also going to make you feel really, really good. So there's also the power of color psychology that a lot of people tend to look over. Again, normally when most people are dressing for interviews, they're thinking black, they're thinking navy, they're thinking beige, they're thinking gray. Like, let's be safe. And one of the things that I know with doing this work is that when you are wearing those dark bland colors, you actually are putting up barriers. There's a reason why judges wear black. There's a reason why there's black tie weddings. It's because you're supposed to be on your best behavior, and you're actually building this barrier between you and everyone else around you. And color creates connection. And one of the most important things when it comes to interview is being able to create a connection with the person that is interviewing you. So being able to use your color as colors that you're wearing as a point of connection is really, really powerful, because your clothing color choices impact how others perceive you, your leadership, your confidence, and your expertise. So a great color to wear when you're interviewing is blue. It builds trust and authority. It's great for interviews, executive presence, and corporate leadership. Another color that's also great is green. It sends the message of growth and credibility. It's great for networking, for business casual, and for approachable leadership. Another color that's a little bit outside of the box, but is always one of my favorites to slide in place of a navy blue, is teal, because it's showing the message of confidence and innovation. So if you are looking to have a role where you are supposed to be a critical thinker and someone who has a little bit of edge and one up, incorporating teal is going to 100% send that message. It sends a bold mix of authority and approachability for modern, sophisticated leaders. Another thing that's often overlooked is metals, gold, whether it's on buttons or hardware or a belt or a ring or cufflinks. It sends the message of success and prestige, and it conveys high standards. So one of the things that is really powerful when my clients are preparing for a high stakes situation, when they're getting dressed, they're not going, what am I going to wear? They're really taking tools like color psychology and the messages that they're clothing and sending when they're choosing the items that they're putting on that day. So if you are going for an interview, going into your closet, I would suggest doing it a few days before and not leaving it for that day. But going into your closet and saying, what is the message that I want to be saying in this situation? And using color as a driving factor for what you're putting on is going to be a really, really powerful decision. Another thing that's really important as you are thinking about yourselves while interviewing, while you're advocating yourself, is developing your own personal brand. And the word personal brand is thrown everywhere now. I see it, everyone's talking about it on LinkedIn. It's like one of those buzzwords. You should have a personal brand. What is a personal brand? What's your brand? Like your LinkedIn profile is a brand. And what a personal brand actually is the story people tell about you when you're not in the room. And your wardrobe is a powerful visual extension of your dream job. So if you were to think about what you put on each day being the walking billboard for you, it actually is going to help you land your dream job because certain people are going to attach certain physical items to you. So whether it's a color, whether it's you wear unique glasses, whether it's that you always are wearing a bold accessory, or you know what, you always have fun shoes, like that again is going to make you memorable. And in a sea of options, having something that makes you memorable is so powerful. It's also really memorable for when you're meeting people again and again. Like if you wear red glasses all the time, there's going to be that association. They may not remember your name, but that association is going to trigger, I know you, you're everywhere. Okay, you must be the go-to person. It's also going to position you as credible and aligned with leadership roles. One of the most important messages to be sending is trustworthiness when it comes to a job interview, and that comes from consistency. So you having a common thread of how you show up every single time, there's automatically going to be a connection of I can trust this person because they keep showing up as the same person time and time again. If you're a person who pops on a screen, let's say for an interview, and you have, I'm making it up, red hair, you come in for the job interview, you have blonde hair, you then go in for your third interview, they see you in the hall and you have green hair, again, making it up, but it's sending this, like this, I don't know if this person knows who they are. So we want to have this relying theme of consistency, and it's going to really help you leverage and show that they can trust you. The other thing that's great about this is it helps you stay consistent. And that it also makes it so you don't have to feel like you are reinventing the wheel. Every single time you have to show up for something, it's going to quickly be like, I have to go to this interview. This is what I wear, as opposed to feeling like it's a game of trial and error. So how do you develop your personal brands when it comes to style? So what I would ask you to do is, here's a link to connect with me on LinkedIn, because it's one of my favorite things to do is to connect the dots. So if you're kind of like, this is cool, but how do I actually do it into reality? I'm happy to help you with this. But my invitation is to think of 3 words for how you want to be perceived. So a great way to start with this is to say, what is the first thing that I want people to think, feel, or say about me? So like you're walking into a room and you want someone to feel something about you because that's emotion is really, really powerful. You want someone to think something about you because that's going to be the way that their association, and then the thing that they are going to say about you to someone else. Like, oh, she was unique. She was really smart. She was really nice. She was really friendly. So message me those 3 words and I'll send you a quick message about how you can incorporate those words into your wardrobe. Because as I've mentioned, color send messages, print send messages, texture send messages. So if you want to be thought of a certain way, we'll make sure that those associations will be represented in something that you're wearing. The second part of that is to really make sure that your wardrobe is aligning with those specific words, because again, it's branding. So let's say your words are confident and innovative. We want to make sure then that what you are wearing feels modern, it's structured, it's bold, it has strategic color choices. So it always is sending that message. Again, it's meaning something more than just like, this is what you're wearing. It's that trust and the authority building. And then the last step of that is to really dress for the role that you want. So you want to be a trusted executive. Your style should be consistent. It should be high quality and it should be refined. So really digging into what are the things that actually send those messages. Your personal brand isn't just what you say, it's how you show up. And we want to make sure that your wardrobe is working for you and working against you. I cannot tell you how many times people have said, something's off I hear this from people in HR all the time, is that they get this, they're interviewing someone and there's just this thing and it feels like a disconnect and it just rubs them the wrong way. And a lot of times it has to do with that inconsistency. So you really want to think about this as you're preparing for interviews when it comes to how you're showing up and making sure that it feels aligned. The other part of it is really dressing for thought leadership. And you are the walking version of your LinkedIn profile. So we all know that when you go on an interview, just like when you're going on a date, you're gonna look someone up. Like you're gonna like say, who am I meeting? You want to put a name to a face and feel we like to have consistency. So we want to make sure that the same person who is on your LinkedIn profile is the person who's walking into the interview. Again, because when it's not, they're going to be taking the time to be like, something's off here, as opposed to listening to what you're saying. So we want to make sure that how you are representing yourself on LinkedIn is going to be that same person. Again, it's more than clothing. It's your energy, it's your presence, and it's the confidence you exude. Your profile picture matters. Because what's going to happen is they're going to click on your profile before you step into the interview, and they're going to be forming opinions about you before even reading anything, because that's how our brain works. So you also want to make sure that you're making eye contact in your photo. You want to make sure that your photo is something that is relevant. So it shouldn't be you 5 years ago when you had a different hair color, or you were, had a little work done, or you lost weight, you gained some weight. You want it to look the same. The other thing that's also really powerful about a photo is you want it to be closer to your face, because it shows I have no problem standing out and taking center stage. And you also want to make sure that there's nothing distracting going on in your background. So just know that your LinkedIn picture is probably going to be seen before you walk in that door. And if you walk in as the same person, it's going to be like, oh, I already know this person. So great. And then you can move on with your conversation when it comes to the interview. Another question that I get a lot is the differences between dressing for in-person versus virtual interviews. So the goal is always to look polished, professional, and aligned with the role, whether it's in person or on screen. If it's in person, your full presence matters. I know that I shouldn't have to tell you this. However, people are going to see you walking in the room. I've known situations where people have asked the secretary or someone that their first person who's walking in, what did you think of that person? You want to make sure that you don't have like a sloppy coat or something like that. Like always show up like, you want to be seen in every single detail, because first impressions start the moment you walk in. Again, you want to dress one level up from the company's standard. We're in a beautiful time. There is the internet. You can Google anyone or anything. You probably can Google a place you're being interviewed at and see how they dress day to day. There's going to be whether it's a conference or something like that. So go and take a peek. I remember when I was doing my image consulting courses, they would tell you to go sit outside of the company you were interviewing and watch what people are wearing. Now we're in a time when you don't have to sit outside. You could just do a little bit of online research and see what most people are wearing. And you just want to go one level up. So if they're wearing a hoodie, you're not wearing a hoodie. You're going to be wearing a button-down shirt. If someone is wearing a blazer, you should be wearing a blazer and a tie. So always you want to be like, I put the effort in. I cannot tell you how many times I've heard people like internal interviews, they showed up in a sports bra, they've showed up in a hoodie, and the feedback is always, they don't seem to care. Even if you think like, oh, you know what, this is someone I know, it's a friend, always dress one level up from how the company is dressing. You're going to want to prioritize fit, tailoring, go for high quality fabrics for a polished look. There's not a screen in between you. Someone is going to see every single thing. So keep that in mind. Shoes, handbag, grooming matters. Small details send attention to professionalism. So get your shoes buffed, take them to a shoemaker. Don't have any scuffs on anything. It's the full picture. Common mistakes I see is wearing outdated, ill-fitting, or overly casual pieces. So if you were like thinking like, I haven't worn a suit in years, I'll just throw on my old suit. I don't really need a suit. No, don't do that. Like, do not say like, this is a one-time thing. It's really important. and ignoring footwear. They will notice your shoes. I promise you. It's one of the first things I look at. My husband always laughs that on our first, when I first met him, I looked down. People, it tells a lot about how you care about showing up by looking at people's shoes. So don't think that people are not going to notice your footwear. When it comes to dressing virtually, your screen presence matters. You want to choose solid colors that are a contrast with your background. So don't be a floating head. There is a lot of things when it comes to colors and psychology. I've shared some with you. There's also colors that flatter you and make you look draining and tired on screen. You know, red's not the best, white's not the best. It can make you look draining. So colors to really look for are blue, greens, and jewel tones. Look great on screen. It's best to have structured tops or blazers. Even on Zoom, the shape signals authority. So you don't want things to be sloppy because it actually is more noticeable on Zoom because it doesn't have the proportion of your whole body. Good clean lighting, a background is going to create instant credibility. You don't want to have that, like, I just opened my camera. You want to be like the whole presentation. They're judging what's behind you, not just you during an interview. And pay attention to posture, eye contact, and gestures. Engagement really does matter. It shows that you want to be present. Common mistakes that I see virtually are wearing patterns that are pixelate and they distract on camera. So things with stripes, polka dots, small things, you're gonna be hypnotizing the person and they're not going to be paying attention to you. So that's why the quick and easy tip is to stay with salads. Only dressing from the waist up. Accidents happen, people stand up, you may have to go plug something in. Please wear real pants. Like, make sure that, and also here's the other thing that I know is you play more full out when you have shoes on, when you have cologne on, when you have lipstick on. Play full out if you want the job. Poor lighting and cluttered backgrounds diminish your professionalism. So again, they're looking everywhere else besides just like you. So making sure that your background is a full representation of you as well. And so here's the thing. Dressing for success is not about fashion. It's really about strategy. Your presence dictates how others perceive your leadership potential. So if I can give you just 3 action steps to leave with this, audit your wardrobe, go and find a few go-to outfits for each different situation. Try them on, walk in the shoes. Like if you haven't worn shoes in a while, like high heels or something, make sure it works. Do a dress rehearsal. Update your LinkedIn presence. As I mentioned, that disconnect. If you don't look like your LinkedIn profile, they're going to be spending the time questioning who is this person and not listening to what you have to say. And then invest in a few key wardrobe pieces that align with your dream job. One of my favorite things about clothes is that they are actually the only form of physical manifestation. Dress for the job that you want, not the job that you have, and it will happen before you know it. If anyone has any questions, I am here to answer them.
Just checking the chat here.
I put 2 of my favorite quotes in the chat. Please wear pants and dress for the job you want. Melanie. Unbelievably powerful stuff that you shared. I think people really underestimate it, especially when it comes to interviews and virtual. It's amazing. Really, really powerful stuff.
Yeah,
I think that's a key thing about the virtual interviews. A lot of times I find candidates are not always taking them too seriously, or they just think they can show up in whatever. We had a candidate show up in a hoodie and it was like, what? Do we actually have to take the time to tell them don't wear a hoodie to a job interview on, even if it's virtual? But yes, we do. It's a thing. So really good advice, especially for dressing down, where I think with COVID, standards have really kind of dropped quite a bit. I saw people in pajamas at the grocery store, and I think the kind of slack attitude with everything has gotten carried over to the professional realm, right? So important things to think about. Any last questions for Melanie? Just checking here. I think we're good. And we're going to pass the mic over to Matt to tell us a little bit about executive job search.
Thank you, Johnny. Thanks for having me and everybody at the panel. I think I only had one client in my 10 years recruiting that wore leather pants, open dress shirt that was like clubby material, and then an Italian horn necklace. But this man can do CMM quality, CNC machining, and CAD designing all in one. So Ford didn't care because they had old telemechanique robots sitting around, and he's the only one who could program these things at a factory that was going out of business anyway. So I think everything Melanie touched on was exactly right, unless you are that person that can do whatever they want because they've been looking for you for, 1.5 years or something. The unicorn client, but very fair few of us are unicorn candidates. So, you got to watch it. So, yeah, good advice there. And the guy, his name was Conrad. I'll never forget his name. All right. So, executive job search. So, we all kind of see everything online that's pretty basic, right? Outreach to hire managers, use recruiters, what else? Job board, spraying and praying. So essentially, I'll kind of macro level this stuff. I want to talk about what are the main pillars, right? So we got the resume, cover letter, your LinkedIn profile, and then the job hunt itself. And then I always say interviewing is like the most important thing, but I won't. I don't know how much time we're gonna have to get into that. But essentially, let's start with the written word, right? So it's your brand. When I was recruiting, the dinosaur that I am, they were catch-all resumes. You were fine with, 15 years and, whether or not it shows any sort of brand towards the role you're going after, it didn't matter. We just needed to see, kind of what this person was doing and we think if they can relate, right? But nowadays they're sales sheets. Attention spans have gotten worse with social media. The talented candidates on the bench are super niche. So instead of being like, hey, I can do HR generalist work like benefits and payroll and workers' comp and talent acquisition, employers can just go find a benefits person, right? Who's just been doing benefits. So we have to really kind of put ourselves in this box that we want to be put in as a perception. The old like the adage of like, hey, I'm going to throw it at the hiring manager and let them figure out I was a good fit for this. Got 10 years experience doing this stuff. How they not connect those dots? It's because you didn't put them together for them. You didn't put it together for them, right? So control your brand, control your narrative. And it starts with messaging, applications, reach outs, recruiter interactions, your resume, your LinkedIn profile. Everything is judged. And everybody's going to kind of look at you when they go through this hierarchy of hiring at a company and go, well, how much is this person worth? Well, how have they commit? How have they been doing during this whole process of being vetted, right? So the very first thing you can do and control is obviously your resume and your LinkedIn. So, I'll just essentially kind of keep it as quick as I can as far as my resume writing style. But I put my resume content in three buckets, and if it doesn't fall in these buckets, it's not going on the resume. The first one's going to be anything relatable. So go and look at these job descriptions, executives. You see what the stuff they have you doing at 4 or 5 different job descriptions. Highlight all the common stuff and weave that in, reverse engineer that in, but then put a little tip of the cap and onus on it because it's boring to say you can handle full management, project life cycle. Talk to me about what specific, cool, neat win that relates to the project management life cycle, right? So a little bit of an onus, but reverse engineer that stuff in that you can do. That's a kind of common theme among these jobs you're targeting. And then the stuff you can't do, highlight in something else, another color, and then go upskill, right? So it's a little cheat sheet there. Go find a way to do it as affordable as you can and get that on your resume. Again, you're building your value and your worth to these people, these strangers that you want to open up their checkbooks and pay you to do something. They don't even know you. It's pretty daunting, right? And we wonder why hiring is very tedious because most people leave after 6 weeks and get to do it all over again. So reverse engineer bucket one. Just get the content that relates to these people, especially recruiters. They love seeing that stuff because they're not an aerospace engineer. They were taught to recruit aerospace engineers. So help them understand from a macro level why you're a good fit as an aerospace engineer. The second bucket's going to be anything operational, time, money, profits, productivity, efficiency, whatever. Show them bottom line. Show them you care about the money, right? Less is more. You don't need to sprinkle it in like a lot of my hotel general managers do, or my restaurant managers, or some of my pharma salespeople come to me and they're like, Here's, 50,000 metrics. We don't need this to be a data sheet either, right? So let's relate it and let's not just info dump numbers, like make it a sentence. So then again, the recruiters who aren't pharma salespeople understand what the heck you're talking about. So operational, think about the money, the time, things that you've done, continuous improvements, right? And then finally, unique. And the unique bucket can vary. I always say it's like high profile clients. If you can kind of resonate with the target audience, if they like to see some of these high profile clients you might have worked with, speeches, awards, training deliveries, again, continuous improvements. You were on the news, you were in the intranet. You wanted to, you were a track athlete, the Olympics, whatever, just something unique. Nonprofits, big nonprofit stuff. I like that stuff on there. But again, whatever well rounds out your candidacy and your character, keep that little stuff on there, right? And then when you take these three buckets, write it with the least amount of words as possible. These things are screenplays now. Every word should matter, not this fumbling around trying to, get it, cause and effect, cause and effect, cause and effect. I think it's the easiest formula for everybody. If you can kind of keep it, again, short, nice, tightly written sentences, keep them business minded. If you're an aerospace engineer or you're a teacher or you're a nurse, you're in sales for the next 2 to 9 months while you're job hunting. So make this a sales business, or excuse me, make this a sales sheet, business minded resume. You don't have to go all in on your tech speak. Because again, you got to get through the hierarchy and the recruiters might not know what the hell you're talking about. And only the hiring managers do, right? So we got to be mindful of everybody in the process. So keep it business minded. You don't have to be too quirky, funny, fancy, ambiguous. If you're an executive, don't try to outsmart them and start pulling up the sources. Keep it genuine, keep it business minded. And then again, cause and effect. When you're giving them the resume, it's like the meal. They eat it up, they love it. Then they bring you over as a chef to talk about the ingredients. So talk about how you went to cause and effect. Get nerded up with the nerds in the hiring manager room because you guys are going to all talk about this stuff. You guys all understand it. So wait till you get in that room to kind of really tell them about these ingredients. It saves them time. It saves them from also not being, again, overwhelmed when they're reading you and vetting you, and then you kind of get tossed out the door because had you just reworded it to a little bit more of an impact, you might have, got that chance. So again, be mindful of the audience, and there's different characters in the audience, right? Um, the what I do with my clients though essentially is when I take this stuff and we get it on the resume, they use that as a springboard for the interview, right? So when we do our interview training, again, I'll keep this very brief for interviewing. Use that stuff, use this fodder as some of your explanations, right? And try to get into the storytelling mode. So you had this cause and effect over here. You kind of have that beginning and end. So over here, let's go beginning, middle, end, right? So hit these beats when you're discussing this stuff in the interview room, and you can use that as a crib sheet, this little resume, right? So, and keep everything rooted in truth. Don't try to get robotic and memorize stuff rooted in truth, but just make sure again, if you're hitting your beats, make sure it's either putting out a red flag or it's selling the hell out of you. That's kind of the idea, right, for every answer. So that's the resume. Transferred over to LinkedIn. I'm in the boat of let's not make your LinkedIn super different because when I'm a hiring manager, or excuse me, a recruiter with my hiring managers, and we're on the fly trying to get people in for an interview, we don't want to have to stop in our tracks going, well, why is he a production manager over here and he's a supervisor of quality over here? Like I'm so confused by this person's brand. So I've never seen a hiring manager go, oh, they didn't customize their LinkedIn enough. I don't want to bring them in because the resume looked really good, but man, they should have got a little more funny on their LinkedIn. It's again, these people are trying to be practical and they're trying to just put somebody butts in seats, right, as fast as we can. So make it easy on these people. Be pragmatic, and keep the content the same. I'm fine with that. I'm an advocate for it, and my clients are doing fine. Now the LinkedIn digital dust. That's the hard part. So as an executive, I get it. The day-to-day job hunt is not ideal. If you had a headhunter, I'm sure that is kind of what most of you prefer. If your network is a bit exhausted. So, but if you are truly trying to get to that next phase, or you're truly trying to transition to something, this is the work we do as job hunters. We use LinkedIn and we use it effectively. And we don't just use it to go to their job site or again, outreach to hiring managers. There are a bunch of different ways people are getting hired using this thing. If you go to jobstickers.com and mention the show, I'll be glad to give you my LinkedIn job hunting resource guide. It's got like 30 plus ideas. I just pretty much rip them from people that are saying what they did. Hey, I did this and it worked. Oh, that's a cool story. Boom, right? Goes into this folder. So, and plus a couple things that I've tried to drum up over the years, but essentially, there are a lot of things we can do. And what we want to do is use LinkedIn as a branding agent and a vehicle to find networks and find people that might help us, right? So, again, the outreach stuff is going to be one of the main functions, but everyone's doing it. So there's a lot of noise right now in hiring managers, but it's still working. One of my clients just got hired by doing this stuff, right? Going out and he actually did some cold calling, which was how he landed this job too. So he got the email, went from the message, and then he got into the call. So whatever, but this cold outreach stuff works. Again, hit me up if you want some of this information. I'd be glad to give it to you for free. Now, after the LinkedIn, and what else? Oh, we have one more thing on LinkedIn, lurking. Just one thing you can do today is go and find some hiring managers you really like and go and comment on their post. Or share some insight on the post, or like it, whatever, right? And do that consistently, so then you kind of have top of mind with these people because they're only going to get so many likes in a day, and if they keep seeing the same person liking stuff, you're starting to break that barrier down a little bit. So one thing you control today is go be a lurker. Um, Next thing is going to be essentially the job hunt. So this is where, again, executives. So let's do some automation stuff. Let's get some stuff working in the background. Some of the generic stuff will still work, right? If you're now, executives don't have a lot of success with Indeed.com because again, it's sometimes the executive is a hidden market. But again, for what you're doing in life, if you feel like there are opportunities on Indeed for you, just set up an alert. It's the most basic advice anyone should have been doing since day one of job hunt. But alerts are great because then you don't have to worry about spending time on spraying and praying. You could just apply as soon as something really cool comes through. So that's the first thing. Number two, working with recruiters. If you're an executive, hit up the likes of the nationals, right? The Korn Ferry, Robert Half, Aerotech. Those are my favorite three. Now, we need to do a little bit more than that, though, because there are going to be some boutique agencies in your city, right? So find some folks that are doing some really good staffing in your city, and you can do a simple Google search and find where your niche would be and try to connect those two. That is a little bit of a stretch because sometimes there's not going to just be an executive boutique firm in your area, or one for just mechanical engineers or what have you, whatever your bag is. So, but do some of that work and see if you're able to work in bigger cities around you. Try to exhaust those areas. But the goal is to connect with at least three recruiters, and get them working in the background. However, do not pit them against each other. If you get a job over here, an interview over here, and this recruiter over here is like, I got an interview for that company too. Be like, no, this recruiter's already helping me. So just be transparent with these people because you don't want to get blacklisted, but get some people working in the background. When I was a recruiter, I can tell you I got probably 3 of my contract gigs through another recruiter. So again, automating in the background, right? You can also take the initiative of reverse headhunting. I like this idea. Again, it's essentially going in and seeing, okay, I'm living in Sacramento. It's all I can work in is Sacramento, which I'm not. I'm in Wilmington, North Carolina. I don't even know why I use Sacramento. And I'm like, okay, I like these 3 companies that are really cool, doing some cool stuff in Sacramento. Who are their search firms? Go and find this information out. And LinkedIn is wonderful for this. Again, hit me up. But as a part of a search string manipulation, you can find some of this stuff, right? And go and start developing relationships with those recruiters because they're going to get a lot of exclusivity with some of these jobs, right? Some of these bigger companies. That's one way, right? Reverse headhunting. Hiring recruiters. Now, don't pay for them. Now, if you're an executive that's making millions a year, you can go find a headhunter and pay them for their Rolodex and probably have success quicker than doing all this legwork. That's hard. But if you're someone who's making, a couple hundred grand a year as an executive, I would stay away from headhunters unless you really know that can get you that next spot and it's worth that heavy price tag. But otherwise, just work with the recruiters. Recruiters have a lot of good things going on too, right? So that's an automated way. And I actually jotted down a few other ideas here. Yeah, so if you're looking for a career change, let's say you're an executive, been doing some good work, you're a C-suite and you kind of want to branch off and go in a consultancy route or something. These are the kind of things where you want to essentially change your brand up a little bit, right? So yes, make it a necessary evil to go and switch your resume up and go and switch your LinkedIn up. I know it's going to stink because you really got to start to think of like, how does this stuff connect with what I want to do next? But if you want to go into consultant work and from an executive to a consultant, think about what you're good at and what excites you. What's your butterflies in your belly? This is why I love when I get career transitioners because it's like, yes, here's a snapshot of this person ready to take action of their life and control their livelihood and where they're going to gift 40 plus hours to strangers that they probably don't even want to hang out with and they're going to do the good work that they need to do to get to there, because 2 to 9 months is a long time and it's a big span, right? But they turn over these stones, they plant these seeds really, really hard for 6 weeks with me, and then they start to see stuff bloom, right? And so the idea there is, though, cut bait with some of the stuff you're so proud of that, though, these new suitors could care less about. So you got to know what to leave on, what to leave off, right? And that's kind of something that I think us resume writers and career coaches connect dots really well, because we've just been through the ringer so much that we're like, yeah, this person could fit for this. Um, but if you're a consultant, I mean, an executive, want to become a consultant, think about your angle, and if it's turnaround management, startup help, change management, board, maybe you want to go be on the board somewhere, whatever. Shift your complete narrative, because the new suitors are going to want to see a good candidate for that job, not the one that you came from, right? Um, I do like some of this legwork people are doing for what they're doing in interviews. There are people that are literally reverse engineering why this job opening has occurred, and then they're going to figure out what are the two, three beats, what are the pain points, these beats that we know we got to hit, and to make this job success for whoever's getting hired. Well, if we can figure that out by doing some strategic thinking, doing some research, maybe some deep dive, and figure out exactly what those hangups are on their end, then you can come up with a nice analysis and a presentation of sorts for the interview. And this stuff is like going above and beyond. The biggest story I have, there was a guy that I worked with, one of his clients. He's a money coach, and one of his clients essentially found out that there were broken links. It was an SEO marketer job, and there's a bunch of broken links. This person put together a detailed report of all the broken links and where the fixes were, and then gave it to the interviewer, and they got hired because they're like, wow, you did all this work, and I don't know how many hours, but essentially what you give is what you get, right? In anything. So if you're willing to do that legwork for a job you really, really think is cool, why not, right? So again, trying to think of reverse engineering from the job and why it's open, and how, again, you're going to fill that gap without even having to wait for, do you have any questions for us? Which typically is when people ask, why is the job opening? Try to do that legwork ahead of time. And then publishing thought leadership pieces. I love this. There are quoted. It used to be Haro. I know Haro went out of business, but I think it's quoted now. I'm on there. QWOTED. Essentially, you go on there, you give some thought input to any reporter's kind of request, and if they like you, they'll put you in their articles. So I just got on Newsweek this week, and I've had success getting on some big publications this way. So go and share some thought leadership. I mean, you don't have to start a blog, but again, these are little things, and you weave into your story. You weave it into LinkedIn as a post. You weave it into your resume, right? Wherever you can, just gives you that more credibility. I'll give you a couple more here. I've made a master list for you, John. I was like, oh man, how much do I got to talk about here? Um, I love the idea of having a group that is your kind of job hunting group, your little fandom. Essentially, if you can create these strategic roundtables each week, that's another idea. So maybe reach out to some colleagues that you know are like-minded, that might be in the same boat, or reach out to just people you know are professional that you wouldn't mind sharing ideas with. The group job hunting kind of thing is what we do as career coaches. So do it on your own. If you don't want to hire some of us, go and take that onus and try to just, again, have that, I don't know, coffee hour or whatever you want to call it, where everyone talks about their woes of either the job hunt or the business or whatever. Because these are the way you open up discussions, and these are the way that new ideas are sparked. And these are the way then you take that and implement it in your project, right? Implement in your plan. And the execution starts to roll by itself. You don't have to worry about, man, I keep planning all this stuff, but I just don't have time to actually execute. This kind of forces it on you, right? So again, I love having a little fandom group, a little again, a group of people that are advocates of you and what you can do as far as offer value. And then finally, for executives, again, you're at this level, most likely you are more of an accomplished job seeker, we call you, versus early career. So as an executive, start to think in terms of 5 years from me. 5 years from now, what do I look like? 10 years from now, what skills are going to be completely changed by, again, I hate using AI as the word, but this thing is disrupting everybody. And what does that look like for me personally, where I can start to put a plan of action together of where I see myself and how am I going to get there, right? Reverse engineer, reverse engineer, reverse engineer. If I want to be this type of boat 5 years from now, what is it going to take on that career pathing. What's that look like, right? So again, if you need help with any stuff, jobstickers.com, like pot stickers, everyone's favorite appetizer. Jobstickers.com. I've got plenty of links there, and hit me up about this specific presentation. Be glad to give you my freebie, my LinkedIn backdoor. I call it the LinkedIn backdoor job hunt, resource guide, whatever. So I always name things very long. And then, so I don't want them to be memorable at all. And then I'll give you free resume review too. So hit me up. Thank you guys.
Thanks, Matt. A lot of good gold nuggets there in your chat. I really like the re-engineering the job. If you know what pain points the company has and you're going into the interview with that, it's sort of like having the insider knowledge, right? And it's really helpful because if you can understand their pain, I mean, that's huge.
Yeah, and
Creates
feel free
value
to use like
from the
Google
start.
articles. I mean, Google News and stuff like that. Just anywhere you can get. This is what's we have embarrassment of riches for research right now because of the internet and everything. So we're not the old days of going to the bars and talking to people or looking in the newspaper or whatever. I mean, this is like instant access. So just get creative with your searches, but Google News, don't slack on stuff like that too to stay relevant.
Yeah, no, it sounds great. Well,
Thanks, Jeff.
you can chat GPT almost anything now. So there you go.
Exactly. Putting me out of business.
All right. Well, without further ado, we're going to go to Keri-Lynne to talk about setting up pre-negotiating packages, which is for some of us a fairly new concept, but something that I think is in need of doing considering the turnover we see at the C-suite.
Thanks, John. Well, Matt, ChatGPT does not have your humor, so I love it. Love it, love
Thank
it,
you.
love it. I am going to share my screen. I'm not going to give a ton of background on myself. You can definitely take a look at my profile on LinkedIn and learn a little bit more about me. I'm actually a car gearhead like you, Matt, so know that industry very well. That's how I started. I started selling cars to pay for college. So I founded the Salary Bump, and most people that meet me say, where were you 20 years ago? And I often say the same thing about where was I 20 years ago, because I know how much I left on the table throughout my career for a lot of reasons that we're going to get into, and spent a really long part of my career in HR as an HR leader. And I watched a lot of people do the negotiation and the interviewing badly, took notes on the ones that did it well, and I built this beautiful brand that has now expanded into having some sisters. So it started with the Salary Bump. It turned into the Career Bump, and has now turned into the Exit Bump, which is also another really interesting fact that most people don't realize they can negotiate and should be negotiating exit packages as well. So statistically, let's make sure I can actually move the mouse. There we go. Less than 45% of people are negotiating. And the fun stat is that 87% of you who negotiate, they will say yes. Now, that doesn't mean that they'll necessarily give you the full amount that you were hoping for, but the fact of the matter is almost 90% of the time, the person on the other end is saying yes. And they are expecting you to negotiate. Having sat in that seat and interviewed and negotiated with thousands of people, it is really a shock when you don't negotiate. Job jumpers earn 55% more over their career than those who stay loyal. And I'm not proposing that you don't stay loyal to your company. But if the last stat that I read, I think it was approximately 2.7 years is the average that a person stays in your company. And that's a reality that we all need to be aware of and get in front of, and stop trying to figure out and get frustrated by it. The fact is, build great cultures, develop great teams, inspire your people, and certainly you have the opportunity for them to stay longer. But the reality is people are job jumping. So find a way to do it in a way that's fun and special, and that it's memorable, and create fans and create an alumni, and perhaps those people even come back to you one day. And my favorite stat is, for those of you who are not negotiating, you're leaving between $1 and $1.5 million on the table by not doing it. That's over your career. So let's talk a little bit about why people don't negotiate. So most people don't know how. This is a reality. Certainly there's fear around it. But even in early stages, for sure, in my career, I didn't know that I could. I had absolutely no idea I could. I remember I got a job offer with GM. Matt, you can relate. And I remember living in Arizona and they were moving me to New York and they gave me a relocation check. So they paid for all of my relocation, which, by the way, I had no idea that that was even possible. I was in my early 20s. And they wrote me a check for $42,000. And I remember calling my dad and saying, Dad, like, there must be a mistake. Like, this is an extra zero that this can't be right. He's like, you better not cash it, Keri-Lynne. Just hang on to it just in case. And I remember feeling like this, I was like taking advantage of them, that they gave me this check. And this was for my moving expenses. And anyway, I really had no idea that I could negotiate. And then when I started to figure out later on in my career that I could, I started to hear noise that women are bad negotiators. And so that sort of it caused me to pause. And then I was also afraid that if I negotiated, would they think I was more interested in the money than the actual job? And so that scarcity mindset is really, really, it plays a role and can be very, very damaging. And I deal with it with clients every day, because they're also afraid that the offer might get pulled. So we know the market is bananas. We know that it's taking longer to find roles. And so if you are currently unemployed and you are going into a job interview, that scarcity mindset and that fear of that offer getting pulled becomes more and more of a reality and can stop you from negotiating what you're really worth. So let's talk about a way you can stand out. Matt, you touched on this a little bit. One of the first questions that you are going to get asked is, tell me about yourself. And one of the most important things that you can do is develop that talent reel and the answer to that question. Matt talked about the fire in your belly. That's the what you love question. These are 3 questions that everyone needs to figure out a way to answer and articulate in a way that you can connect with the person on the other side. Given it's the first question that you will get asked, you really need to take this opportunity to dive into not only, they don't want to hear, tell me about your resume and show me all the places you worked. They have that in front of them. What they want to know is, who are you? So what is it that you love? What lights your fire? What are you really passionate about? And then the second question is, what are you really good at? Like, hands tied behind your back, eyes closed, innately good. And then the last, but really not least, is, how do you wish to, or do you want to make an impact on the world? This is such an important factor. It's the old-fashioned word for it is your elevator pitch. I don't love that. So I actually went to LinkedIn and had everybody give me new ideas on names. So we landed with Talent Reel, but it really is connecting to your values, to what you love, what you're really good at, and how you want to make an impact on the world. And one of the other early questions that you will get is from the recruiter. More often than not, if a recruiter is reaching out to you, they want to know, let's get grounded to your salary expectations. This is such a dangerous question because I don't advise you answer it, first of all. I always advise that you go back and answer it with something like, it would be helpful if you could share what the budget is for the role and the compensation philosophy at your company, because every organization has a different model. Every organization pulls from different data points. Every organization has different stages of growth. So you might be walking into a company that is fairly young and they're waiting more on equity, because equity is a beautiful, shiny object that may or may not actually come to fruition. And it's easier for them to talk about equity because they're talking about what series they're in. They're talking about money they're raising and millions get thrown around, and it's exciting. But you really want to understand what their philosophy is. So do we have a bonus structure? Do we even have a compensation philosophy? What are our benefits programs? All of the things that go into developing that package are really, really important. So I generally do not recommend that you answer the question. I would prefer that you lead with curiosity, certainly not with confrontation, and try to get grounded on what they've budgeted for the role and the comp philosophy inside. You will eventually have to answer the question, and you will eventually need to make sure that you have data. So there's a couple of tips here in ensuring that you've done your homework. When they ask that question, if you go back and you say, what's the budget for the role? They may not want to share that with you. So you do need to have this and have done your homework and practice. So a couple of quick tools for you. ChatGPT has a tool called Salary Navigator. Salary Navigator is a good tool for someone who doesn't have access to buy all of the different comp structures that are out there. You can drop in your resume, you can drop in the job description, and you can ask for the location that you're in, what the comp package should look like. And it will pop out for you ranges, and you never, ever want to talk in pure numbers. So if you're backed into a corner and you have to answer that question, you always want to talk in a range, knowing that the low end of that range is your happy number. That's the number you would be happy with. The high end being your dream number. In the event they bring you in at the lowest amount, you're still going to be happy with that number. And practice the conversation. This is something that you can't take lightly because it's an awkward conversation. We've already established that it's not so easy for people to have these conversations. Just be sure that you have practiced in front of the mirror, in front of your video. What does it feel like to have this conversation? And last but not least, when it comes to preparing, use silence. Often what happens when people answer this question, they try to fill that gap when it's that awkward silence, and they start negotiating against themselves. So they might say, my expectations would be, or the market research that I've done would be between 120 and 125, or 100 and 125, but I would be okay to accept 100. They end up feeling it, and they end up then backing themselves into a corner, which is really, really difficult to pull yourself out of. Not to mention, when this question gets asked at a very early stage, you know absolutely nothing about the company. You know nothing about this job. You know nothing about the organization and the structure. So it's such an awkward question that I wish recruiters would stop asking. There is certainly, I think, 23 states as it is today that you have to post the range anyway. So there's an opportunity to get that number out there without having to ask that question. It's just I think it's such a dangerous one, and it's a dangerous one for you to answer before you actually have even a feeling if this is a company that you're interested in pursuing. So let's talk a little bit about when the offer comes. You never want to accept the offer when it's received. You want to take time to review the offer. You obviously want to show gratitude. You want to thank them for preparing it for the interview process. You're excited to have time to actually reflect on the offer. Give them 48 to 72 hours, a good time for me to come back to you. And then think about creating a win-win. There is a long list beyond just the salary and the bonus. So most often you will get an offer, and that offer includes salary and bonus. It will rarely include anything beyond that. Sometimes they'll say this is what your PTO is, but what they will rarely do is share upfront the healthcare benefits. And you could be leaving a role that is costing you $500 a month for your healthcare benefits for your family and walking into $2,000 a month if you're not asking this question. Can you please send me the breakdown of the benefits? Can you please send me any of the other benefits that might be included outside of this offer letter? All of those factors go into your decision-making process and really need to be said when that offer arrives. Coming back to them and creating a win-win, I will often say to my clients, when you go back to do the actual negotiation, to say, listen, we're in a really beautiful place. You've made me this offer. So you want me. I want you. How can we create a great conversation now where we both walk away feeling valued? And see what they say. Because at the end of the day, they shouldn't want a knockdown, drag out, win lose conversation with you. They should want to create a win-win. And the goal is that you're coming prepared with all of the other things beyond salary that are going to help you close any gaps, add to the list. I'm going to give you just a really quick example. I work with everyone from CEOs to automotive technicians. And I worked with an automotive technician. It's one of my most interesting clients, an hourly worker, had gotten a master certification in his technician certification process. And it's a very rare thing to get. Technician turnover rate is about more than 50%. So dealers do not want to lose technicians that are well trained. He got his certification. He loved the dealer group he worked with. Called me and he said, Kale, I don't want to leave. I really want to stay and build a career here, but I want more money. I said, okay, so let's talk about that. So we used his master cert as the platform for his promotion. We then looked at all the different levers that we had to pull. Obviously, his hourly rate, that was an obvious. We looked at his bonus, which wasn't really great. And so we co-created a bonus structure that they ended up accepting and rolling out to the rest of the technicians. We ended up talking with them about car insurance and gas, given that he worked for a dealer group. That was a fairly interesting and easy one, but the dealer had never thought of it. So, and then the last thing that we negotiated was healthcare coverage, full coverage for him and his wife. So the out-of-pocket costs that he was now saving with this car, gas, insurance, and healthcare was $2,700 a month that he got to put back in his pocket, which was massive. And then we also negotiated 15 more days of PTO, which as an hourly worker, you know that that is real money back in your pocket. So there are so many creative ways to look at the other benefits and find ways to close any gaps and to truly take your offer to a completely new level that most people don't think about. So thanks. Here's how you can reach me. My primary platform is LinkedIn. I take calls with people all the time, and it's beyond a pleasure to get to know you and help you figure out how you can find your way.
Thanks, Keri-Lynne. I'm just going to ask if there's any final questions for the panel here in the chat. Also going to post everyone's bio and websites for everyone attending in case you want to check in and see what everyone's up to.
Yes to the cover letter question. It's a necessary evil. Half the audience still reads them, so just play the game, have one.
All right, I think otherwise we're all covered for questions now. And I'm going to thank everybody for attending today. And of course, our amazing panel. Really appreciate everyone participating. Some really great advice and insight, and especially with the clothes for me, being one of the terrible dressers. I usually just wear black. So some things to consider. Maybe the background too. We can change that a little bit more pop. We need more pop, right?
I think Melanie has a masterclass coming up. You should join, John.
Yeah, maybe.
It just was 2 hours ago.
Oh, well, there
We
you go.
missed it. Okay, the next
I
one.
missed the boat on that one. Well, thanks, everyone for participating and your advice. We're going to have this posted on YouTube hopefully early next week, as well as some more info about all our speakers to send out to everybody. So, thanks for coming to our event today.
Cheers.
Thanks, John.
Take care, everybody.